About the resilience from the squad.
I love the way we fight. This team never gives up.
It's the playoffs. I'm going to do whatever it takes to win.
Embiid is rolling early.
Keep going.
Sixers with all kind of swagger. Lou Williams feeling it. Oh my goodness. Here he goes. And Young scores again. Gallinari, big shot for the Hawks. What a comeback and what a collapse.
He is Jalen Rose. I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. What exactly is it that we do? We get the people what they want. We have an update on the Mavs front office. Paul George got it done without Kawhi Leonard, but we start with the Sixers and the Hawks. Jalen Anthony Rose. This game was over. The Sixers were up by 24 points.
Waxing the Hawks.
It was over. And then Trae Young and the Hawks turned the entire thing around. This was not a comeback. This was a collapse by the Sixers. What do you think of this game?
First, shout to Nate McMillan, because the resolve of this young basketball team has been remarkable for their first overall playoff run together. And Trae Young in particular, going against multiple defenders.
Oh, yeah.
It don't matter whether it's Ben Simmons, it don't matter whether it's Thibault, it don't matter whether it's Tobias Harris. He's still finding a way to initiate the offense and play make for those around him. In particular, the beneficiary is our guy, John Collins. And that three that he made was major.
Huge.
In that comeback.
Huge.
And all of a sudden now, if you're Philadelphia, you go from being in the driver's seat thinking that you have the answers to solving Trae Young, and then they go to the bench. Lou Will came in the fourth quarter.
Lemon Pepper Lou.
He was balling.
Yeah, he was.
Putting in work. He and Gallo. Were both balling, and they needed that productivity to get themselves back in the game.
My only criticism of Gallo's game last night is, remember when he had the mohawk? He's letting it grow out now. Like, he needs to see the barber. It just looks so much better with the mohawk. He had a playoff cut. But Jalen, I can't stress this enough, as we celebrated the Hawks. This was a complete meltdown from a strategy perspective, from an execution perspective, and from a gentleman by the name of Ben Simmons.
So the thing about Ben Simmons, I believe if the Philadelphia 76ers lose to the Atlanta Hawks, when you look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, Boston is now changing their coach. The Nets now have a big three. The Bucks have Giannis re-signed. I believe if they lose the series, they'll probably change their coach. So if you're Philly, what move do you now make? Hinkie, gone. GM, trust the process. Old coach, Brown, gone. Right? You bring in Daryl Morey. You bring in Doc Rivers. And all of a sudden you're getting bounced by the Hawks. I believe if the Sixers lose in this series, they're going to break up Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid.
Well, they tried. They tried earlier this season. They tried to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. It did not work. But you know there were only two human beings in a Sixers jersey that scored field goals in the second half, and that was Seth Curry, who had a great game, and Joel Embiid. Like, it was just a complete meltdown by them. You have to look at Doc Rivers as well.
Shout to Seth Curry, because like you mentioned, he was the only one that played above his expectation, and he kept him in that game. And put those fourth quarter numbers back up there, please, for the Philadelphia 76ers big three. Because you know what may not be up there? The free throw Joel missed late. That was also crucial. And like I told you, Ben Simmons, it's one thing not to score a field goal in the fourth quarter. Oh, by the way, he hasn't scored one in the last two fourth quarters. It's another thing to have zero, dog.
I know.
Like, to have a donut in the fourth quarter for your all-star, your all-NBA performer, like, I told everybody the pieces of the chessboard just become awkward in the playoffs because they need to occupy the same real estate. Joel is best around the basket and in the paint. So is Ben Simmons. Like I told you,
we've been saying this for years.
They're the only team. Get this knowledge, y'all. They're the only team whose two best players aren't primary three-point shooters. They're the only team in these playoffs. And so what happens is if they're not out in transition, they're not getting steals and they're not getting blocks, and you're able to set your defense, and Ben Simmons is a poor free throw shooter as well. Like Philly in trouble. I told you I was at the game on Monday. And what did I tell you I saw when they came to the timeouts?
Joel Embiid lying down on the sideline like Larry Bird, looking up at the ceiling, fatigued. And it looked like he was also fatigued in the fourth quarter of this one. It's not just this season. We've been saying that about Joel Embiid in the playoffs for years now.
His productivity between the first quarter, first half, versus the fourth quarter.
Two different
players.
Two different people.
It's two different players. And so if you're Doc Rivers, if they lose this series, he's going to now start to be questioned also.
Remember last year when he was playing Montrezl Harrell and Jokic was doing whatever he wanted? He was questioned then and he lost his job.
And you know who was on that team last year? Lou Will. You know how much he loved doing that? Mm-hmm. Think about it. Lou Will played for Doc Rivers last year. And they came up short of expectation. And so if they lose this year, they're not going to fire Doc, but man, he's going to be on the hot seat as it relates to fans and media.
Well, we had another game in the nightcap. It was a Kawhi-less Clippers going up against the Jazz. And listen, I'm going to say it out loud. I wrote the Clippers off without Kawhi Leonard. I was like, there's no chance that they are going to win this series without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Not pandemic P, it was playoff P last night.
This was a signature moment in a Clippers uniform for Paul George that he sorely needed.
Preach.
This was the best player in the Indiana Pacer uniform going against LeBron James and the Miami Heat that I saw last night. He was on a trajectory to be a superstar as an Indiana Pacer. He had a horrific injury, and then he goes to OKC, reinvents himself, gets in the MVP conversation, becomes a member of the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, and all of a sudden struggles when they need him the most. Kawhi goes out after both of them been playing well. All eyes were on Paul George, and he over-delivered.
Oh yeah,
he over-delivered.
He had like a Kevin Durant game. Like
Correct.
it was like Kevin Durant's
Correct.
game.
Correct.
Look at the rebounds: 5 assists, 16 rebounds, 37 points.
And also, when he's dominant like that, now Morris can find a way to knock his shots down.
Morris look great.
And shout to Reggie Jackson. He's been a revelation for them. One thing that Ty Lue has done that's kind of like not being discussed, because he gave Reggie Jackson Patrick Beverley's spot.
Oh, all of it. All of it.
Like, Patrick Beverley was their starting point guard for like 2 or 3 years before they picked up Reggie Jackson. Now, that productivity they're getting from him is sorely needed. On the road at Utah without Kawhi.
Well, another thing that they're doing is Ty Lue said, Zubac, I appreciate your service. Thank you so much. You helped us a lot during the regular season. Big fella. Love you so much. But you ain't seen the floor in this one. I don't care if Rudy Gobert is out there. We're going to go small. We're going to stay small. And they did a lot of action that got Rudy Gobert in the pick and roll, which is something that people talk about for the Defensive Player of the Year. You shouldn't be targeted the way he was targeted last night.
Well, 7-footer is going to get targeted. That's just how this goes. Yeah. The last MVP that was a center was Shaq in 2000. I was in the league then. I won Most Improved Player. Guess what happened in the finals? You're not going to stop Shaq in the paint.
No.
But he ain't going to stop you in pick and roll. You just got to make these great players work, and that's what they're doing to Rudy Gobert.
And they're doing a really good job at it. Now, there's something that happened that we have to discuss, and it's that. The Terrence Mann, quote-unquote, dunk. I love this so much. Look at his face when he gets up, Jalen.
Who's the artist that said, he's a man-eater?
It's Hall & Oates, I believe.
You like that, right?
Here she comes. Watch out for, she'll chew you up.
That's what I thought about when I saw that. He's a man-eater.
Hall & Oates, we're so old talking about Hall & Oates in 2021.
Oh, here he comes. Watch out, Rudy. He'll chew you up. Oh, here he comes. He's a man-eater. Hey, that's a big-time play for that young guy.
Yep.
He's playing quality minutes for them. And I always look at their backcourt and try to figure out who's going to be a guy that they're going to get productivity from. They're needing his quality minutes.
And again, Pat Bev is on the sideline. Terrence Mann is in the game.
Yes.
Reggie Jackson is in the game, being very productive. We have some more news from Dallas regarding the Mavericks. The legend, Donnie Nelson, is no longer going to be in the front office, and there are murmurs and rumors and reports that Doncic is upset about this. There's just so much going on with Dallas that has nothing to do with the basketball. Why are we hearing this?
Keep it simple. This is a conversation about two people that the rest of us don't even have to worry about. This is between Mark Cuban and Luka.
That's it.
If Luka signs on the dotted line, that means he's happy with who's getting hired and fired. If he doesn't sign on the dotted line, that means he's unhappy with who's getting